Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Today we have with us Brittany Van. She is Brandi Van. I'm sorry. I can't believe I said that. And I can't read today, apparently, because it's right there on the screen. So Brandi Van, welcome to the show. She is a psychic mentor who helps people jumpstart their psychic abilities. That is really interesting to me, and I can hardly wait to hear how you got started in this and what it is that you actually help people do.
Sure.
So welcome to the show, Brandi.
Yes, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. Hello to all the listeners out there. Thanks so much for tuning in. I was a spiritual medium. So I was, doing a lot of mediumship readings, which is great because I totally changed my view on death, because I can still talk to deceased loved ones, which is amazing. But I remember back to like my very first start of my journey, and there weren't really any mentors out there. There's no class, there's nobody to talk to. So I was like receiving messages from spirit, but I didn't know who they were for or what they meant. And it took me years to find a mentor. Like there just wasn't one out there. I was reading books, I was watching TV shows, but nothing was really working. And so, although I do love doing the mediumship readings, I do still do them. I was like, I need to take this a step further and really create more light workers in the world. So let me go ahead and create this mentorship program where I can let people know that we all have these abilities, and I can teach them, A to Z, a roadmap that's proven that I've created to get them to develop these abilities.
That is such a necessary thing. I mean, it's like we've had these things around us for so long where women are more intuitive, I think, than guys are for the most part. It's not that guys aren't intuitive. It's just that women have this intuitive nature. And for so many centuries, women have been just like oppressed because of it. And when you tell people you're a psychic medium, I'm sure a lot of them, they're just like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But it's a thing, and everybody does, I believe, have psychic abilities. We just tend to have it trained out of us because of people going, yeah, sure, at us.
Yeah. And not only that we're not like trained that way, but also a lot of people don't even realize what a psychic experience is. So like if you experience deja vu, they might not, correlate that to a psychic ability, but that is one of the abilities. Or if you like can see something out of the corner of your eye, that's a psychic ability. So if people don't even know what they are or what to look out for, they don't even realize that they're having these psychic experiences.
Yeah, and they happen to us every day. I mean, it's just most people don't recognize it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So do you have some tips for how to recognize those sort of things?
Sure. So the first thing, that's really important is so let's say you create something in your mind. So if you're using your imagination, and right now I told you to see the orange, right? Like an orange fruit. So you're seeing that in your mind, and the more vivid you can get it, you were looking for the size, you're looking for the color. And then if you throw it up in the air in your mind, like let gravity go away, don't see it come back down, let it go away. And that will actually train your brain, because not only are you making something vivid, but then when something comes into your mind that you didn't create, now you can recognize, oh, that came from spirit. So it's an easy task to do, to just get your imagination going. You are just using your imagination, but then you're able to recognize when spirit might give you a vision or a symbol or an image in your mind that you didn't create. So that's a really easy one to try.
Oh, that's really interesting. I was doing the exercise as you were talking about. And the more you practice visualization techniques like that, the easier it gets to just like, you could do the little dimples on the orange and it gets really detailed.
Yes.
And I think, that's part of the process of knowing what your images look like versus when images just drop in on you and you're like, oh, that's really interesting. I don't understand that one because that's not one I made.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you really have to see it that way. It's a muscle that you've never worked out before. So it does take a lot of practice. And, just like as though you were going to play the piano or learn how to play basketball. I mean, you have to learn the steps, you have to actually practice at it. And eventually, hopefully, you'll get really good at it. But it is an ability that we all have. It's just, first you have to obviously have an interest in it. Then you have to learn how to do it. And then you have to practice just like any other skill or talent out there.
So how did you get to the point where you could tell who your messages were meant for?
Sure. So I went through the mentorship and I was able to then call spirit on demand. So when you have someone in front of you that you're doing a reading for, they're called a sitter. So I would practice sitters. So every week I had a group that I would join and we all practiced on each other. And so it's really like, I would ask, who am I connecting with? How long ago did they pass? And how are you related to them? And at the beginning, it was very simple, like, oh, your mom likes the color red, when she was alive. And then it started to get really detailed in terms of like, here's a specific memory from when you were younger, or she knows you're doing this with your life right now, and she's not sure it's the right path for you. So it gets really specific. But the problem is your rational mind comes in and your mind is like, you're making this up. This isn't real, and so you really have to trust your intuition and quiet that ego, that rational mind, or else you'll never begin to self-trust yourself and get those validations. So it really comes down to like steps that you do to actually call a spirit in, whether it's a spirit guide, a deceased loved one, an angel, whoever it might be. And there are certain steps that you need to take to protect yourself and to get into that, meditation mode, I guess you could call it. And that's what I teach in my program as well, because it takes a long time to learn those steps. So it's not like, I'll just sit here and tell everybody them right now, because it would be impossible for them to learn it right now. But there are certain steps that you take to get there.
That's really interesting. I've done I've done an Akashic journey with a friend of mine, but instead of her doing it, she had me do it. And part of the process was hypnotherapy, which is not hypnosis. It's a state of being. That allows you to just relax enough that your rational mind takes a vacation for a few minutes.
Yeah.
It's letting that part go and just being able to sit in whatever is coming up for you and recognizing it and being relaxed enough to just accept what's being said. Are you clairaudient?
I am mostly clairaudient, so I hear the message, but it's my voice, but it's not my thought. So imagine when I'm 10 years old and I'm hearing things in my mind that I know I didn't just think of. So it's the same thing as the images, but it was a thought going on. And so I'm like, I didn't just think that. And then on top of that, I'm also clairvoyant, where I'm able to see the visions and the images and symbols. So it almost comes to me like a home video, or like I'm flipping through a photo album is kind of how I can describe how I see it in my mind's eye.
I know I keep saying, oh, that's so interesting, but it really, to me, it is very interesting. So do you work with groups? How does working with you look?
Yes, I work in a group setting because I love the idea of the like-minded community because
Mhm.
as you were saying at the beginning, some people just think we're making this up or we're crazy. So I love that we can all get together in a group and tell each other our experiences so that, it's non-judgmental and we can share in a very safe space. It's a 90-day program and it's full of I think there's like 70 exercises. I have all of them on video so that people can play, replay, pause them, however they need to do it. And it's not a matter of, do this exercise one time. It's do the exercise until. So until you feel something or hear something, see something, and you feel something has changed in that exercise. And it's not a matter of, magically in 90 days you're going to be psychic. Maybe you will be, but I can't guarantee that. It's just that if you keep doing these steps, you will become a psychic. And there's so many different types of psychics out there. So, I mean, you could be an empath or a healer or a medium. There's so many different types out there. And then you can really have a career out of it or a side hustle or just keep it to yourself. But I do find that most people want to then share it with other people and help them as well. So, yeah, it's definitely in the group setting. I do bi-weekly Q&A calls so they can ask any questions. And then I also have the private Facebook group because I never want them to feel alone. That's the whole point, is that I don't want anyone to feel alone like I was for many years.
Yeah, and it's really, though it's becoming more accepted, at least in the circles that I run in, for the longest time, people were just like, no, she's that way. And I think the woo is coming in.
Yes.
People are just, I'm starting to realize that it's whether we want to acknowledge it or not, this stuff does exist. These
Yes.
abilities do exist. I mean, we've all had that gut feeling about somebody or some place where we've been. It's just like, no, there's something wrong here. I can't rationally tell you what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out of here. And that's your intuition. And
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
really what's being psychic is all about, is depending on your intuition and tapping into the greater consciousness that
Yes.
exists.
Exactly. And those skeptics that are out there, this is how I combat skeptics, right? So they always are about the science, and the science can tell us about our consciousness and our brain and our mind and how all that works, which is awesome. I love scientists, but they can't tell you how subjective experiences work. There's no science to prove what I'm experiencing and what you're experiencing. You can't tell by looking at us whether you're a believer or a skeptic. So if I have a toothache and you have a toothache and it's the same one, it could be like totally painful for me and not hurting you at all. But no one would know that because no one knows what you're experiencing just by looking at you. So that's how I'm always like, I know I'm having these experiences and there's nobody external that could tell me that I'm not having them. So that's how I always am like, you have no idea what I'm experiencing.
And it doesn't make you, you may have these abilities, but you're just a normal person. I mean, you do normal things, like, you're a foodie who's allergic to everything. And I
Yes.
want to know about that. I'm just going to ask you about it because I don't get it.
Sure. So I'm allergic to everything in terms of like nature. So like I basically am allergic to everything outside and everything inside because I'm allergic to dust as well and my own dogs, but I have them anyway. But so I've had 3 anaphylaxis attacks and they were always from something in the air. So like, and they can't figure out what it is. So I'm like, great, I'm just like allergic to the air. So I was in the melting pot once, and you know how like I don't know if you've ever been there, but there's like a lot of fondue and there's lots of oils, and I had an anaphylactic attack from that because of the oils from the food in the air. So yeah, I just feel like I'm allergic to everything. I always have to have my EpiPen on me. I'm taking a ton of allergy medications, but luckily I'm only allergic to like anchovies and pine nuts. So not too many foods, thank goodness, because I love eating.
Yeah. I'm so glad that it's not food, because
Yes.
I mean, I love food too.
Yes.
I like really good food, well
Yes.
prepared,
Yeah.
and just like the whole experience
Yes.
of the meal. It's just
Yeah.
like, it's the thing.
Yes. And as you were saying, like, I have to be a normal person, because if I was in the spirit world all day long, like, I would totally lose my reality. You know, I wouldn't even be like feeling like a human anymore. I'd just be like talking to dead people all day, which I wouldn't want to be doing that all the time. So thank goodness I've learned to, set my boundaries so I can let spirit know when they can contact me versus them just coming in anytime that they want. So yeah, if not, like, I wouldn't be able to live a normal life. So yeah.
That's an interesting thing that you're bringing up about boundaries for the other side. How does that work?
Yeah, so just like you would set a boundary with a human, every morning when I wake up, I set my intention and I let them know, basically you pretend like you have a brick and mortar business. So my open sign is today from 9 to 5, but you can't bother me in the evening. You can't bother me at lunch or dinner. And you really have to let spirit know that, because if not, they will just think that you're always open and you always want to receive these messages. Because when you become psychic, you're like a big ball of white energy, like a big ball of white light. So not only are you seeing spirit, they're seeing you. It's a two-way street, and they want to come toward that light because they know you can get their message across. So I just have to be sure to be like, yeah, I'm closed right now. So you, even if you try to come, I'm not going to give your message anyway. I am closed. Or if I don't feel good, or if I'm on vacation, or whatever it is, they have to know, like, I am not going to receive your message right now.
So do you mostly get messages for other people, or do you get messages for yourself?
I get both. Yeah. So if I do a meditation, I can definitely tune into my spirit guides and ask them questions. And then also, if I'm doing a mediumship reading, I can do a deceased loved one, and sometimes more than one loved one will come through. And I can also do spirit guide readings for other people as well. So yeah, it's just a matter of how you are able to like channel yourself in and connect.
Interesting. And do they have to be psychic, or is it just totally like a one-way street?
Nope, it's a one-way street, but I'll tell you, if I do another psychic, it is so much more powerful because that person is totally open-minded. They know how to do it, so it's like it's both of our energies connecting, and I get a really strong message whenever I do a psychic. So it's really interesting how that works.
So do you do the practice things with your groups? Is that
So right now I just hold the groups and it's for my clients to practice. So I'm just kind of like the facilitator to get the sitters to come in and practice with my new clients so that they can get the practice. But at one time when I was practicing, yeah, it was me with these sitters, and a lot of trial and error, because it really, the purpose of the circle is to get your trust going, because if you don't trust yourself, you'll never get the message correct, because sometimes there's not a validation. I might say something and the sitter could say that makes absolutely no sense, but you still have to give it because that's the message that came through. You have to trust it. And then maybe a week or two later, they'll be like, oh, I talked to my mom and it actually did make sense. It just didn't make sense to me at the time. But if I didn't say it and trust myself, then they wouldn't have gotten the message. So yeah, you always just have to really, self-trust is a huge thing.
so the sitters that your group practices, it's not practicing with each other, it's practicing with
Correct.
outside people.
Yes, outside people. Yep.
Okay. And I know that you have a little ebook. I don't know how little it is. I was trying to start to read it and then you showed up. It's like, but I'm going to read it after I get off of here,
Okay, great.
which is about discovering your psychic abilities. You want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
It's a very small book. It's really more of a guide. It's only like 12 pages, and it's more of a quiz. So it's called Discover Your Unique Psychic Ability. And it's really to show you, in case you don't know what your experiences you're having that are psychic. And then it breaks it into what type of psychic. So whether you're an empath or a telepath, and you're just going to do the quiz and see which most adds up for you. And then by that, you'll be able to tell what type of psychic you are.
Oh, interesting. Do most people fall into one category or another, or do they kind of have a little bit of everything?
Yeah,
How
some
does that
people can
look?
have one, other people can have 10. Like, everybody's different. And even through my program, like, I have clients that they have abilities that I don't even have. Like, I've created this roadmap thinking it would just get them from A to Z, but it's like creating these light workers that, someone can cross spirits over into the light. Like, I've never even tried doing that, and she can do that. So now I'm learning from my clients. And then I have another client who's an angelic healer. he can say someone's name, pray for them through the archangels, and his validation rate is amazing. It's like 80%, I would say. People who have been in comas are coming out of comas. People that have been in hospice are coming out of hospice. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. I can't do it, but it's amazing to see how many types are out there that I didn't even know, and I'm creating them, and I didn't even know I could do that, right? So it's awesome.
That is really interesting. So what are the basic ones?
So the basics are, so a medium is someone who can talk to a deceased loved one. So all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. So not everyone can talk to a deceased loved one. Then there's spiritual healers. So they can heal someone, even if the person's not in the room, they can do some healing on that person's physical body or mental, emotional states. There's also intuitives that can help you connect with your spirit guides. They're able to ask the spirit guides if you're on your right path, and help you maybe with like career, relationship, those type of things. And then there's also telepaths. These are probably like the top 4 or 5. And they are able to communicate with animals. So whether it's an animal that's living or an animal that passed over, they can use their brain waves to be able to connect with the animals and get messages that way. So yeah, but there's so many different kinds, and it's so awesome.
Really interesting. I've known people that actually they talk to animals. They're like they're able to communicate with animals.
Yeah.
I've tried to do it myself with some of my pets. Like I'll call
Mhm.
them in my head, try to get them
Yeah.
to come. And sometimes it actually works.
Okay.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say my, success rate's very high, but
Hey, good for you for trying though.
I try.
Yeah, that's good.
So it's really fun to experiment around in some of these realms that, you know, I get it. It seems so odd, but there really is a lot of science behind some of this stuff and how it works and the energy that's involved in it, because it's not really, we're not anything more than just energy. And
Exactly. Yeah.
I know you think we're solid beings, but really we're not.
Yeah.
We're just a bunch of energy waves that transfer around and
Yep. And we
meander
have
through the.
different vibrations and frequencies, and yeah, absolutely. And there's even groups out there that scientists are working with the mediums to see what goes on in their brain. So they're like putting electrodes on them to see like what happens whenever they're able to connect. So who knows, maybe the scientists will take my job. I hope not, but maybe they're going to figure it out one day and everyone will be able to do it. But I always look back like 100 years ago. If someone would have said, "Oh, we're going to have the internet and be able to look up anything at any time," they would have thought that person was crazy. So you just never know how we're going to evolve, and maybe one day they're going to figure it all out.
And it used to be that mediums were kind of more present than they are today, back in the 20s,
Yes,
the turn of the
absolutely.
century, and
Yep.
up to like maybe the late 20s. People were going to seances, and
Yeah.
that was not an unusual thing. But I think, at least in this country, um
Yes.
um are you in the United States? I should ask you
I
that. I
am.
talk
Yeah,
to
I'm in
people every.
Philadelphia. Yeah.
Oh, you're in South Africa. Well, it might be different there.
No.
So yeah, I know that it was a bigger thing then than it is now, but I
Yeah.
think it's making a comeback. Things are changing so much right now. The
And
last couple of years.
yeah, I even think like, as bad as the pandemic was that our turning point? Because I feel like a lot of people turned to spirituality then. And so it's kind of like, did that happen for that reason, for people to turn to spirituality? I don't know. But yeah, even back in the 1800s, in the Victorian era, like
Mhm.
that was a lot of mediums. And there's a book out there. It's called The Spirits Book by Alan Kardec. And that book is so awesome. If any of your readers want to read it, I totally recommend it. It's basically him asking questions and the mediums giving answers. And it's like, as though the Bible for Christianity, this is like the Bible for spiritualism. And it really gives you a great overview of what spirits are saying and all these questions that they're answering. Like, it blew my mind.
I remember back in the 80s when Seth came out, and I actually read it. It was
Okay.
super interesting. He was he was a spirit. It was a book that was spirit written. And again, a lot of negativity was around that at the time, but the book itself was interesting, and it's just there's just so much out there.
Yeah.
And
there's too many people having these experiences. Like, what are we all making it up? Like, there's a lot of people out there, so we're not all making it up. Like, yeah, they have to start to see that there's a pattern and some consistencies here for sure.
Yeah. And it's just tuning in to what is around you. Visualizations, when you try to visualize your future, I know Joe Dispenza does that a lot. He's about, make yourself feel like you're going to feel when you want to feel.
Yes.
When you want to
manifesting. Yep. Mm-hmm.
With manifesting. And I mean, that's just an exercise in intuition and moving the cosmos, to bending the cosmos to your will, I guess. Yes. Is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But he does a lot of data collection around that. It's just not, he's not just saying, oh, just do this because I said. He's got, probably thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people who've gotten amazing results.
Wow.
From just doing a simple thing. It's just really meditation, but it's a process.
Yeah, it's putting that intention into it. So you're really living with intention. And then there's also, if the manifestation doesn't work, for anybody out there that maybe it's not working, your spirit guides are going to step in and say, like, this isn't for you. So if you're trying as hard as you can and it's not working, your spirit guides are going to step in and be like, this is not the right path. Try a different one. So if you've been trying a long time, it's not working. It could be that your spirit guides are trying to tell you something.
Yeah, because we all come here with a purpose.
Yeah.
And I think our spirit guides, their job is to, like, keep us on task.
Yes. Yeah.
Where, we may think that we want to be millionaires and live in a big castle and take all these exotic trips, but that's not why we came here this time.
Yeah.
So stop trying to do that. Just, get back on your job.
Your
job is to help the poor people. You're not living in a mansion. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
So, well, what is the one thing you would like to leave the audience with today, Brandi?
So I guess the one thing, of course, if they want to check me out, if you go to my website, brandivan.com, that's Brandi with an I, you can sign up for my email newsletter list. You can get my free ebook. You can even book a discovery call with me, because I would love to hear about your experiences and to see if you're a right fit for my program. But I think I just really want to remind everyone that even if you are having a bad day or a bad experience, to try to change your mind into thinking, like, why is this happening to me? And change that into, what is this teaching me? Because I think that can really get you to look at things differently and give you a little bit of, self-compassion and self-forgiveness to yourself, to just look at it in a different way. So I think that's what I would like to leave with the readers whenever they're having a hard time.
I like that. I like that a lot. It really, the whole gratitude list, it's just about shifting your perception of what's happening in your environment.
Yes. And gratitude's really a state of being. It's not just like making a list of, this is what I'm thankful for. It's just that constant state of being grateful. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And just allowing things around you to be.
Yes.
And not having to have them go your way.
Yeah.
Which, and then you get upset because they didn't go your way. So it's like, well, they weren't supposed to anyway.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
And people can find your ebook on your website. It's really easy to get. Yeah. And I'm going to go read it after this.
Okay. Let me know what you find. I'm excited to hear.
I will. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brandi.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the U World Order or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.